events leading to the founding of the Oregon Trail and ultimately to the human activity in the 1800s at Ash Hollow was the establishment of Fort Astoria in 1811 at the mouth of the Columbia River. The following year, Robert Stewart returned to New York to make a full report of the first expeditions to the fort. It was Stewart and 6 companions who traveled what was to become the Oregon Trail. On their journey, they discovered South Pass, where one could cross the Continental Divide without having to negotiate jagged mountains and timber forests, and in the spring of 1813 passed by Ash Hollow. The first wheels to engrave the gentle ascents and descents of the trail over South Pass through Ash Hollow can be traced to 1827, when William Ashley and his men transported a small cannon from St. Louis to a fur trade rendezvous at the Great Salt Lake. The feasibility of the Platte River route for wagons was confirmed in 1830 by fur trade companies using the north side of the river to transport merchandise from St. Louis to the Rocky Mountains, opening the West to a great flood of people who would follow the trails they blazed. They entered the valley from the east. A swamp encountered on the south side of the river forced them to detour over the hills until they found a trail leading into Ash Hollow Valley. Early travelers using the Platte River Road forded the South Platte River near O'Fallon's Bluff, which proved to be a particularly hazardous crossing. Word spread that a better crossing existed farther west, very near where rural Nebraska is located today. This crossing became known as the Lower California Crossing and led to the steep declivity into the hollow called Windless Hill. The apprehension, writes Merrill Mattis, of those who had the experience of coming into Ash Hollow the hard way, that is, down Windless Hill, is reflected in the journals of many immigrants. Has saturated the history of the bone-shattering descent for generations, even though no contraption of the sort is ever mentioned in immigrant journals of the period. If there ever was a windlass, it had to be sometime after the Great Migration ended in the late 1860s. In any case, once the immigrants came to rest on the valley floor, they filled their journals with entries such as this.
A most magnificent view saluted the eye. Before and below us was the North Fork of the Nebraska River, winding its way through broken hills and meadows, behind us the undulating prairie.
And most of which became extinct at the end of the Pliocene era. Plant material is also found in the layers of the Ash Hollow drainage. In fact, fossil grasses, such as needle and thread grass found here, represent the most complete and best preserved geologic record of this group in the world. For several thousand years, people camped in Ash Hollow Cave just over the cliff from the visitor center. In its layered deposits, archaeologists deciphered man's remote history. Each layer reveals something about the sequence in which humans have lived on the high plains, from the generations of man who ventured across the Bering Strait to early Plains Indians. The first major excavation of Ash Hollow Cave occurred in 1939. Then in 1946, archaeologist Dr. John Chen identified 7 cultural layers in the cave shelter, the youngest of which he attributed to the Dismal River culture, ancestors to the historic plains of Apache. Today, it is known from Consider the daily invisible rain of dust, and then imagine its weight when multiplied by centuries, wrote Thomas Henry Huxley. Here, gathered from all places and all time, beneath the dusty layers of the sedimentary rock of perpendicular cliffs, unimaginably ancient animals, plants, and 19th century settlers, soldiers, and Sioux meet. This is Ash Hollow, one of the most historic places in Nebraska's state park system. Nearby sites reveal a convergence of human activity occurring over a period of 8,000 years. Plains Indians were the first peoples to use this sheltered area. Then, thousands of years later, this tree-lined basin marked a welcome pause from the rigors of the Oregon Trail. From 1830 to the late 1850s, missionaries, fur traders, settlers, gold miners, and the United States Army traversed the Ash Hollow Valley en route to California and Oregon. The geologic history exposed in the cliffs of Ash Hollow reveals strata associated with the Pliocene era, a period of time occurring 1 to 12 million years ago. Fossil remains of life forms abound in the layers of sediment and volcanic ash composing these cliffs. There were mammals, reptiles.
Here are the overland trails. Here's a look across the valley at Ash Hollow. This is the Ash Hollow Cave.